Hey family, welcome back. Today's message is going to hit deep because it's not just a video, it's a spiritual confirmation. If you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. Chosen one, pause for a moment. Because what you're about to hear isn't just another video playing in the background. It's not a coincidence you clicked. This moment has been orchestrated in the unseen, timed perfectly to find your spirit, right when you're finally ready to hear it. This message, it's a divine announcement. A whisper from heaven that just got louder. And here's the truth. It's about you. You see, the apology you thought would never come is on its way. Not whispered in secrecy, but spoken where others will witness it, publicly. And not because of pride, but because heaven is setting the record straight. The ones who spoke against you, the ones who laughed at your calling, who dismissed your dreams and downplayed your voice, they're about to come back, but this time with a different tone. A softer one, a humbled one, a tone of recognition. Why? Because God never forgets a seed planted in silence. A spiritual stirring is happening. Chosen one, have you felt it? That quiet stillness in your soul that doesn't make sense? That sudden peace even when everything around you still looks messy? That unexplainable clarity, like you know something big is about to unfold, but you can't quite put your finger on it? Yeah, that's not imagination, that's confirmation. You've been sensing a spiritual shift, angelic dreams, divine numbers, or maybe just a calm in your sleep that you can't explain. That's heaven's way of saying, get ready. This isn't just your season of breakthrough. It's your season of vindication, and not everyone's going to get it. In fact, this message might not even make sense to someone who hasn't walked through the kind of spiritual warfare you have. But if you've ever walked into a room and felt unseen, yet somehow targeted, if you've ever carried a vision no one else around you understood, if you've ever been told you were too deep, too intense, or too much, but still couldn't silence that divine pull inside you, then this message will feel like home. It will feel like truth. It's time to type 402 right now. If this message is resonating already, I want you to do something bold. Type 444 in the comments. That's the number of divine justice. It's your agreement with heaven's timing. It's more than a number. It's a declaration. I know who I am. I know what season this is. I'm aligned with what heaven is doing. And guess what? Others will see it. You're not walking this road alone. When you comment, you're joining a prophetic tribe. You're creating a ripple of faith. And I read through those comments. We all do. This isn't just content. This is community. This is spirit guide. The vindication is public. Let me tell you something powerful, and you might want to pause and let this sink in. The apology you're about to receive, it's not going to be quiet. It's not going to be whispered behind closed doors. It's going to be seen. God is flipping the script in a way that even your enemies will have to acknowledge. Not because you forced it, not because you begged for it, but because you were still. Still when you were lied on. Still when you were betrayed. Still when they talked about you, blocked you, ghosted you, or pushed you out. You didn't fight back with anger. You didn't clap back online. You didn't expose what you could have. And because you stayed in position, God stepped in. Vengeance is mine means God's handling it. The scripture says, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, I will repay. And he is. But let's be clear. This isn't about revenge. This is about reversal. This is about justice. This is about God making it clear. You were chosen from the start. And now, I'm going to show them. The shift that's happening isn't small. It's not silent anymore. It's undeniable. You're being raised. The same people who doubted you are going to see what they tried to bury, rise up with more strength than before. You're not under their table anymore, begging for crumbs. You're being seated at your own table, and God's preparing it in their presence. Let that image settle in your soul. How heaven operates differently. When God brings justice, He doesn't throw shade, He shines light. Some of those who wronged you, they're already being visited in dreams, in flashbacks, in their own moments of stillness, when your name keeps coming up in their spirit and they can't figure out why. That's not guilt, that's conviction. That's heaven reminding them who they rejected. Not just you, but the assignment on your life, the message in your mouth, the anointing on your name. The beginning of a new era. Let's be honest, chosen one. You didn't just survive, you stayed aligned. You kept walking when the path was unclear. You kept trusting when your prayers seemed unanswered. And now the spiritual tables are turning. This is your era of being seen. Not because you shouted, but because your life became the evidence. This is just the beginning. And what's coming next? It'll be even deeper. Before we go there, if this word is hitting your spirit, type 999 in the comments. That's the number of divine completion. It says, the old chapter has closed. I'm walking into the new. Chosen one, listen. What's happening right now in the unseen realm is no accident. The balance is being corrected, not with noise, but with undeniable spiritual force. You weren't overlooked, you were watched. You've been asking, why now? Why is everything changing? Here's the answer. Heaven has officially shifted the power. For a long time, it felt like the proud were being promoted while you were left on red. Like manipulators kept getting platforms while your pure intentions were dismissed. Like deception had a spotlight and truth kept sitting in the shadows. But behind the scenes, heaven was watching. Not just your pain, but your patience. Not just what they did, but how you responded. You didn't clap back. You didn't expose what you knew. You didn't let your ego lead. And now the books in heaven are being opened. The divine scales are being tipped, because God doesn't forget. And He's about to reward the restraint that no one else saw but Him. The stillness was strategy. You know those moments when you wanted to scream, when the lies were too loud and the truth seemed silent, when you were tempted to post that long message or call someone out directly, but instead, you stayed quiet. You stayed in posture. You let God handle what your hands could have touched but didn't. That was spiritual obedience. That was what passed the test. Chosen one, God saw it all. And now, He's responding, not with destruction, but with divine reversal. This isn't karma. This is kingdom. They're being convicted in private. Right now, as you're watching this, some of the very people who treated you like you were disposable are feeling restless. They're waking up in the middle of the night, haunted by your name. They're having dreams they can't shake. They're starting to see flashbacks of moments they tried to forget. Not because they're suddenly enlightened, but because heaven is stirring their conscience. They're being visited, not by you, but by God. And let's be real, they may not even understand what's happening inside them. They might not call it conviction. They'll say, I've just been thinking about you a lot. Or, I don't know why, but I feel like I owe you something. That's the Spirit moving. That's divine awakening. It's not about ego. It's about honor. Chosen one, I want you to hear this clearly. This moment in your life, it's not about proving anything. It's not about finally getting to say, "I told you so." It's about honor being restored. It's about assignments being recognized. It's about God's name being glorified through your life. When someone mistreats a chosen vessel, they're not just hurting the person. They're dishonoring the message that vessel carries. That's why the apology has to come. Because it's not just about clearing your name. It's about realigning with the voice of God they tried to mute. You didn't fight dirty. You fought holy. There's a reason God didn't let you respond with bitterness. There's a reason you felt blocked every time you tried to explain yourself. There's a reason your name stayed quiet while others' voices were loud. It was all part of the setup. God needed you still. He needed you obedient. Because the reward was never going to come from them. It was going to come from Him. Some of you heard that whisper in your spirit, "Be still, I'm handling it." And even though it made no sense, you obeyed. That obedience, it's why the spiritual tables have now turned. Your table is being prepared. Let this next truth settle in your bones. You're no longer waiting for a seat at their table. God is preparing a table for you, and He's not doing it in secret. He's doing it in the presence of your enemies. They will watch. They will see. They will witness the elevation of someone they tried to minimize, and you won't even have to say a word, because your life is becoming the sermon. Your fruit is becoming the proof. Your silence is now speaking louder than their noise ever did. The reversal has begun. Here's how you'll know the spiritual shift is real. Where there was once resistance, there's now favor. Where there was once delay, there's now divine acceleration. Where doors used to shut in your face, they're now opening wide. And here's the twist. Some of those doors, they're being opened by the same hands that once tried to shut them. That's not coincidence. That's kingdom. When heaven shifts the table, the entire structure changes. Your name is now being mentioned in rooms you've never entered. Your reputation is being restored by people who once rejected you. They're feeling the shift. 2. Don't be surprised if you get a random text, an unexpected email, a DM from someone you haven't spoken to in years. They might not even know what to say. They might stumble over their words. They might try to re-enter your life awkwardly, without naming what they did. But you'll know. Because the energy will tell you everything. They've seen the proof. They've felt the conviction. And even if their lips don't speak it, their posture will show it. You're not looking for perfection. You're looking for authenticity. You are the evidence. Let me leave you with this. Your life is the evidence. You don't need to defend it anymore. You don't need to argue anymore. You don't need to make people see it. Because now they can't unsee it. What the enemy meant to bury has become your platform. What was meant to silence you has become your sound. And what was meant to break you has become your foundation. Chosen one, this is just the beginning. If this resonates with your spirit, drop 777 in the comments, the number of divine completion and spiritual alignment. And if you haven't already, take a second to subscribe and tap the bell so you never miss when the next word drops in divine timing. Chosen one, there's a moment when heaven stops being quiet, when the spirit speaks louder than denial, and that moment is here. Heaven breaks the silence. There comes a time when silence ends, not because you finally spoke, but because heaven did. That's what's happening right now. A divine interruption, a spiritual shift, a holy unveiling. The people who wronged you, the ones who smiled in your face but talked behind your back, the ones who took your kindness as weakness, are no longer able to escape the truth. Because their conscience has awakened, not from guilt alone, not from personal growth, but because the Spirit of God is stirring them. This isn't a natural change, it's a supernatural confrontation. You were never forgotten. You were protected. Understand this. When someone violates a chosen one, it doesn't just disappear into the past. It echoes. In the unseen realm, those words, those actions, those betrayals, they were recorded. And now, those echoes are catching up to the people who created them. Some are restless, some are sleepless, some are confused, but heaven isn't. God knows exactly what's happening and why. Because even when it seemed like the world forgot what was done to you, heaven didn't. Conviction, not condemnation. Let's be clear. This isn't about punishment. This isn't about payback. It's about correction. God doesn't stir conscience just to shame. He does it to restore. Some of these people are being visited in their sleep. Some are reliving moments they tried to block out. Some are hearing your name in places it shouldn't be mentioned and wondering why. They may not be ready to admit it out loud, but they're feeling it, hard. And the weight? It's getting heavier. They can't shake the truth, because truth, when touched by the Spirit, becomes inescapable. A hidden offense, a public conviction. Chosen one, there are things you endured that no one ever knew. You cried silently. You forgave without receiving closure. You healed in the dark. But what was hidden from others was never hidden from God. And now the time has come for what was concealed to be brought into the light. Not for scandal, but for reconciliation. Not for gossip, but for glory. This is the spiritual law. What's done in darkness must be brought into the light, not by exposure, but by divine weight, by conviction that only heaven can stir. You've changed, and that's why this is happening now. You may wonder, why now? Why is this rising again after all this time? Here's why. Because you've changed. You're not the same version of yourself that was desperate for closure. You're not still bleeding. You're healed. You're whole. You're aligned. And because you're no longer waiting for an apology to feel peace, God is allowing that apology to come. You're no longer depending on their words to feel validated. You already know who you are. That's why it's happening now, because you're finally ready to hear it without needing it. Their words might be imperfect, but their spirit won't be. Let's prepare your heart for this. Some of them will try to come back without saying much. Some will be awkward. Some will avoid the topic. Some might never say, "I'm sorry," the way you imagined. But if you pay attention, not to their words, but to their spirit, you'll know. The pride will be gone. The defensiveness will vanish. The control they once had over your emotions will be broken, and you won't have to force anything, because your spirit will recognize what theirs has finally acknowledged. You were never the problem. You were the vessel. Don't miss the bigger picture. This isn't just about them. It's about a larger prophetic fulfillment. Their awakening is part of your elevation. Their shift is part of your story. Their apology is just one stop along the road God already paved for you. Even if they never say everything out loud, their life will start to speak. They'll treat you differently. They'll reference you with respect. They'll watch your growth with awe, even if they do it quietly. And most of all, their heart will carry the knowing. You carried something divine, and they mishandled it. Your healing is already done. You've been walking in clarity. You've already forgiven. You've already moved forward. But heaven wanted to make sure they knew it too. That's why they're being stirred. That's why the past is resurfacing, not to trap you, but to release them. And guess what? you'll respond with grace. Because the apology you once needed, you now carry peace without it. You don't need closure anymore. You are the closure. If this resonates, type 333 in the comments, symbolizing divine fulfillment, that what was spoken is now coming full circle. Chosen one, hear this with your spirit. The pain you walked through wasn't pointless. It was a divine test, and you passed it, without even knowing you were being watched. It wasn't a breakdown. It was an evaluation. There's something heaven saw in you that others missed. You didn't just survive betrayal. You grew through it. You didn't just endure rejection. You let it shape you without letting it harden you. And that's exactly what the test was about. See, God doesn't test you to shame you. He tests you to reveal you to you. Because there's a strength you only discover in silence. There's a purity that only rises in the fire. And chosen one, that fire didn't consume you. It refined you. Heaven let it hurt to make room. It wasn't punishment. It was preparation. What looked like abandonment was really alignment. What felt like being left behind was actually heaven making room. Room for new oil. Room for deeper discernment. Room for the weight of what you're now being trusted to carry. You see, many are called, but few are crushed. And crushing is always the prerequisite for carrying glory. Ask Joseph, ask Esther, ask David. Even Christ himself didn't skip the cross, and neither did you. The delay wasn't denial, it was development. You asked God, why aren't you doing something? But he was. He was working in you, because before he could clear your name, he had to cleanse your heart. If he vindicated you too soon, you would have needed their apology just to feel whole. If he restored you too quickly, you might have walked into your calling still bleeding. But now you're different. Now you're grounded. Now you don't need applause. Now you don't crave revenge. Now you understand the weight of what you're carrying. That's why heaven allowed it to sting. Because without the sting, there would have been no sharpening. You obeyed when it hurt most. Let's pause and acknowledge something profound. You obeyed when it cost you the most. You stayed silent when you could have exposed them. You showed honor when they gave you none. You stayed loyal to God when your heart was breaking in pieces. That's not weakness. That's warfare. That's worship in its purest form. And heaven never missed a moment of it. Every time you bit your tongue, every time you prayed instead of posting, every time you chose patience over pride, that was your test. And chosen one, you passed it. You didn't just survive. You were sanctified. The people who hurt you weren't sent to destroy you. They were allowed to reveal what God still needed to purge. That sting of rejection, it showed you where you still leaned on people instead of presence. That betrayal, it revealed where your confidence needed to be rooted. That delay, it exposed your idol of timing. Heaven didn't let you suffer to punish you. It allowed it to purify you. Because what you're stepping into now can't be built on old habits or unhealed places. God couldn't skip the process. This is where many fall away. They want the promotion without the purification. They want the platform without the pain. But you let the wilderness teach you. You let the silence mature you. You let the ache make you listen. And now you're ready. Because if God gave you this level of favor before the crushing, you might have used it to prove a point. But now, you'll use it to point people to Him. You're not looking for validation. You're walking in confirmation. Every test was strategic, chosen one. The people who betrayed you were part of the curriculum. Not because they were right, but because God used their wrongs to bring out the real you. You didn't know your discernment was that strong. until deception knocked. You didn't know your spiritual ears were that sharp until the noise faded. You didn't know you carried that kind of resilience until you had to walk alone. But now you see it. Now you feel it. Now you know. This pain had purpose. This shift is the reward for endurance. Let's make something clear. This elevation isn't just for show. It's the result of endurance, of restraint, of faithfulness under fire. That's why doors are opening now. That's why what was delayed is now being delivered. Heaven has been waiting for this moment, not when you were desperate, but when you were developed. And now, what was once hidden is being released. Not because you pushed for it, but because you proved you could be trusted with it. You passed the test. And the next part of your journey, it's not about surviving the fire. It's about walking in what the fire forged. Chosen one, the season of hiding is over. The same eyes that overlooked you are now about to witness what heaven has always seen in you. This is not a coincidence. It's divine timing. There's a moment when heaven decides it's time. Not your time, not their time, God's time. That moment, it's now. You've been hidden long enough. You've been misunderstood long enough. You've been whispered about long enough. But now heaven is putting you in plain view, not to show off, but to show truth. And not just to strangers, but to the same people who questioned your calling. The same ones who said you were too deep, too intense, too different. The same ones who mocked your obedience are now being positioned to witness your elevation. You were hidden for a reason. Let's rewind for a second. The silence? It wasn't a punishment. It was a shield. God had you covered, not because you weren't ready to speak, but because they weren't ready to listen. If He had revealed you too early, their dishonor could have distorted your direction. So He hid you. He let them think you were forgotten. He let them assume your obedience led nowhere. But what they didn't know is He was building something they couldn't see. And now, what was being built in secret is being revealed in power. Elevation. Without explanation. You won't have to explain yourself. You won't have to say, "I told you so." You won't even have to defend your process, because the fruit will speak. The evidence will be undeniable. This is the season where results replace rumors, where anointing silences accusation, where purpose makes pride fall silent. They'll watch the doors open. They'll see the honor pour in. And some will wonder, how did this happen? But you'll know. It was never you. It was never connections, algorithms, or networks. It was heaven. When heaven lifts you, no one can block it. Exaltation doesn't come from popularity. It comes from purity. It doesn't come from hustle. It comes from humility. And when heaven decides to lift you, no one can demote you. Not gossip, not manipulation, not lies. You don't need approval from people who once labeled you incorrectly. You're being exalted not because they clapped, but because you endured. That's why this moment is different. It's not revenge, it's revelation. You're being elevated to be evidence. God is using your life as a teaching moment to show others. This is what I do with the ones who trust me through the tears. This is what happens when someone stays faithful in private. This is the reward for silent seasons, filled with obedience, not noise. You're not being lifted to prove a point. You're being lifted to be a prophetic sign that even when people turn their backs, even when they block you, even when they mock you, heaven never forgets. The ones who watched you fall will witness you rise. Here's where it gets personal. Some of the very people who said you'd never make it, who used your struggle as gossip, who were loud about your failures, will now watch as God sets you in places their pride said you'd never reach. They won't be able to stop it. They won't be able to ignore it. They won't be able to pretend they didn't see it. And yet, when it happens, don't be arrogant. Don't gloat. Don't retaliate. Just smile. Because you'll know this isn't you getting even. This is God making things right. Joseph was mocked. Let me remind you, Joseph was mocked by his own brothers. They threw him in a pit. They stripped him of his coat. They sold him into slavery. And years later, they stood before him, in need, in awe, unable to recognize the man they once tried to erase. But Joseph didn't punish them. He revealed himself, and he said something that echoes in the spirit today. You meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. That's your testimony now. Grace will be your language. When people who once laughed now reach out, when invitations start coming from the very rooms that shut you out, respond with grace, move with peace, not because you forgot, but because you forgave, because you understand now that this wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about walking in what was rightfully yours. You're not elevated for applause. You're elevated for assignment. Because now, you're not walking in emotion. You're walking in divine authority. This is the fulfillment of promise. Chosen one, you didn't miss your moment. This is the moment. The culmination of all your obedience. The reward for every secret, yes. The unveiling of what heaven always knew was inside you. You're not being exalted to stand above anyone. You're being exalted to stand in the fullness of who God created you to be. It's not payback. It's prophecy. And it's unfolding right in front of their eyes. Take a breath. You're no longer proving anything. You're walking in proof. Let's keep going. What's coming next will not only surprise you, it will confirm everything God whispered to you in the dark. Because their apology, it's not just emotional closure, it's a prophetic event. This was written before it happened. Let's go back before the betrayal, before the misunderstanding, before the exile, before the lies. There were promises over your life, spoken by God, not man. And those promises, they included not just restoration for you, but correction around you. That's why this apology, as strange or unexpected as it might seem, is actually a fulfillment. It's something that was written into your story before the wound was ever inflicted. Yes, their apology was prophesied. It's not about the words. It's about the witness. The apology may not come with flowers. It may not come with tears. It may not even sound like, "I'm sorry." But the spirit behind it will be unmistakable. Because when God brings someone full circle, it doesn't always come through poetic language. It comes through conviction, clarity, and humility. And that humility? It's not just for you to feel better. It's for others to witness the power of justice handled by heaven. Because some people believed the lie. Some sided with the gossip. Some stood silent when they should have spoken. And now, heaven is letting them see the truth. This is public for a reason. The restoration of your name will not be hidden. Because the harm wasn't hidden either. You were judged publicly, dismissed publicly, mocked publicly. So now heaven is honoring you in front of others, not to embarrass them, but to establish order. There is a spiritual law that governs all things. What is sown must be reaped. What was dishonored must be reconciled. And when you stayed silent, you allowed God to be the judge. And now, He's ruling in your favor. This isn't just a moment, it's a marker. Don't view their return as an emotional twist in your story. See it for what it truly is, a marker of prophecy fulfilled. When someone who once dismissed you comes back, you'll feel it in your spirit. This is bigger than us. This is heaven completing what it started. It's not about fixing the past. It's about proving the future was always protected. What they meant for harm has now become a signpost that God's word never returns void. Don't be distracted by delivery. The apology might not come in a way that looks like what you imagined. Some won't say much. Some will test the waters with soft reconnection. Some may even try to act like nothing happened. But your discernment has grown. You're no longer reading their words, you're reading their energy. And here's the truth. Even without perfect language, their demeanor will show the shift. Because God doesn't just change circumstances, He transforms hearts. And if He's sending them back, it's because something has already changed in the spirit. This is a test for you, too chosen one. Don't miss this. Yes, their apology is a prophetic moment, but your response is just as prophetic. Because heaven already tested your heart in pain. Now it's testing your posture in power. You'll have a choice to respond from the healed version of you or to slip back into the offended one. This is where maturity is required. This is where you become the proof of transformation, not just by how you rise, but how you receive those who once didn't see you. Remember, forgiveness doesn't require re-entry, but it does require wisdom and grace. Honor where there was once harm. This moment might feel awkward. It might feel heavy, but don't shrink it down to emotion. This is a spiritual exchange. God is allowing people to come back, not to flatter you, but to restore what they tore. And some of them won't even realize they're fulfilling prophecy. They'll say things like, "I don't know why, but I needed to reach out. You've been on my mind. I just wanted to say I admire what you've become." They won't even know that heaven has moved their spirit, but you'll know, because you'll feel peace wash over you like a wave. Your response will seal it. This is where legacy is written. The way you handle this moment, the grace you carry, the words you don't say, it will echo. Because people are watching. The spirit realm is watching, and heaven is taking notes. You're not just receiving an apology. You're closing a spiritual cycle. You're allowing divine justice to run its full course. And when you respond with the same humility that brought you here, you multiply the oil. You expand the favor. You deepen your spiritual maturity. Let it settle in your spirit. The public apology, it's not the climax. It's the confirmation that the road you walked in silence wasn't in vain, that the suffering wasn't wasted, that God's promise is unfolding, detail by detail, just like He said it would. Let that truth rest in you, like a still sunrise. The prophecy is still alive, and you, chosen one, are living proof. You prayed for the truth to come out. Now that it has, why does it feel so heavy? Because spiritual vindication doesn't just come with peace. It comes with responsibility. You've been lifted, but it feels heavy. This season you're in, it's not just about restoration, it's about revelation. But let's be honest, being vindicated in front of others doesn't feel like a celebration. It feels like a weight. You spent so long in silence, unseen, misjudged, and now, suddenly, you're in the light, and it's bright. You thought this would feel like victory, but instead, it feels like a quiet ache, a strange stillness, a heavy awareness. Not because you're ungrateful, but because deep down, you know, this is sacred. You're not just seen, you're entrusted. The public apology, the doors opening, the elevation, they aren't trophies, they're assignments. God isn't showing others your truth, just to prove them wrong. He's showing them your obedience. Because while you were hidden, he wasn't just watching, he was preparing you for the spiritual weight of influence with integrity. And now that your name is being spoken with respect, now that you're being called into rooms you once only prayed for, heaven expects more from you. Not perfection, but alignment. The ache is real, but it's holy. Let's talk about it. That emotional ache you feel right now. The part of you that asks, why did they wait so long to believe me? Why couldn't they have seen me before I was successful? Why now? That's not bitterness, it's honesty. But don't let that ache turn into resentment. Let it turn into revelation. You're not the same person they rejected. You've evolved, you've grown, you've healed. And now, even though their apology came late, it didn't come too late. Because God timed this, not them. You're carrying prophetic visibility. Now here's what few people will ever say. Being seen after being silenced is a test. Because now, eyes are on you. People are watching, not to judge, but to learn. They want to know, will you respond in love or pride? Will you lead with grace or ego? Will you hold space for the same people who once left you out? This is your new assignment, not just to walk in power, but to walk in character. Because prophetic visibility carries spiritual weight. You are a living lesson. The way you carry yourself now will teach others what obedience looks like. Some of the same people who dismissed you, they're learning from you now. They may never say it out loud. They may never admit it. But your walk, your words, your wisdom are now being watched. And you didn't get here because of strategy. You got here because of surrender. So don't change now. Let your spirit speak louder than your success. Let your humility speak louder than their history. Let your peace be the loudest voice in the room. Your dignity is your defense. Chosen one, you don't need to clap back. You don't need to rehearse your pain. You don't need to make them feel what you felt. Because your dignity already speaks volumes. They see it, they feel it, they know. And even if they don't say it, trust me, the conviction is working. Their pride may keep them from full confession, but their spirit is already kneeling. You don't need revenge when you walk in revelation. And you don't need closure when you carry completion. You're not bitter. You're better. Let this settle deep. You're not being called to relive the pain. You're being called to redeem it. Every tear trained you. Every betrayal built you. Every delay deepened you. And now you carry wisdom that cannot be taught, only earned. So when they circle back, when the conversations shift, when the ones who mocked you speak your name with honor, don't shrink, don't hesitate, don't gloat, just stand. Because God is showing everyone that He never needed to defend you with noise. He defended you with favor. This is the weight of glory. Yes, vindication is beautiful, but it's also sacred, because now you are walking in fulfillment. You are carrying the glory that comes after suffering, the light that follows loyalty, the favor that flows after fire. And that weight, it's not to break you, it's to ground you. You are the vessel. You are the evidence. You are the reflection of what happens when someone refuses to bow to bitterness and chooses purpose instead. The final word. Chosen one. The tables have turned, not for show, for significance. You're not being honored to boast. You're being honored to lead. And your grace under pressure will be the loudest testimony of all. The apology was never the point. It was the proof. Proof that God saw everything. Proof that silence wasn't surrender. Proof that what was prophesied has now manifested. And this This is just the beginning. If you've made it here, you already know this wasn't just a message. It was a mirror, a divine confirmation of where you are and what you carry now. You are no longer forgotten. You are being revealed. You are chosen. And your story is still unfolding. Let this entire journey settle into your spirit. And if you feel led, you may quietly share this with someone walking through their own silent season. Because sometimes the right word at the right time doesn't just shift perspective, it unlocks purpose. Chosen one, take a deep breath right now. Let everything you've heard settle into your spirit, not just as encouragement, but as a divine confirmation. All this time, you thought you were waiting for them to change, for them to see you, for them to come back and say, "I was wrong." But here's the truth. Heaven is whispering now. This was never about them. It was always about you. The pain shaped you, but it didn't define you. Everything they did, it helped reveal what was already in you. Their absence created space for God's presence. Their rejection cleared the way for divine redirection. Their silence forced you to hear heaven more clearly than ever before. The pain, that was the beginning of your refinement. The apology, that's just the confirmation of who you've become through it all. You no longer need closure. You walk in clarity. You no longer need revenge. You carry revelation. You are the fulfillment. Let me tell you plainly, you are not waiting for a promise to arrive. You are the fulfillment of the promise. You are the healed version of the broken vessel. You are the wise version of the one who used to beg for validation. You are the chosen one who stood through fire and didn't bow. God didn't just defend you, He developed you. He didn't just restore you, He revealed you. You are not in your becoming, you are in your beholding. And from this point forward, you don't need to look back anymore. What comes next requires a clean heart. As you move forward, don't carry the offense. Don't carry the residue of who you used to be. Don't try to rehearse what they did. Why? Because what's coming next requires a clean heart, not a perfect one, but one that's surrendered, aligned, soft, and ready. Ready for real favor, ready for new mantles, ready for divine responsibility. This isn't the end of the road. It's the entrance into a new realm. One last whisper from heaven. The same spirit that sustained you in the wilderness is the same spirit walking with you into the promise. You're not alone. You're not behind. You're not broken. You're prepared. So, walk forward now, with your head held high, not in arrogance but in awareness. Because when God brings you out of silence, it's never to make noise, it's to bring glory. If this spoke to you, if your heart is still burning from what you've just heard, take a moment and type this in the comments. I was never forgotten. I was being prepared. Let that be your closing declaration, a spiritual stamp, a faith marker. And if you're already subscribed, stay connected. More divine messages will arrive right on time, just like this one did. You made it through the fire. Now walk like you carry the flame. This was never about them. It was always about you. Stay ready. There's more coming.